this will be a shorter live stream, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to read you bits of the Victory Day parade speech, and just so you can hear what Putin had to say, I'm going to read you an article by, or bits of an article by Dmitry Peskov, where he's talking about like why he doesn't engage with Western reporters anymore. He doesn't talk to them because they make up stuff. And then I'll answer any questions that you might have. So here's the Victory Day parade speech. So he says, Happy Victory Day parade. This is Putin speaking. Happy Victory Day. Happy holiday that commemorates the honor of our fathers, grandfathers, and great-grandfathers who glorified and immortalized their names by defending our fatherland. They saved humankind from Nazism through immeasurable courage and immense sacrifice. Well, there was immense sacrifice, and part of that was just how terribly the Russians actually fought in the war. Many more Russians died than in other countries, but they also fought terribly. Now he's invoking Nazism for a reason, because he's trying to tie that to what's going on now. Today, our civilization is at a crucial turning point. A real war is being waged against our country again, but we have countered international terrorism, and we will defend the people of the Donbass and safeguard our security. No, you're not countering international terrorism. You're essentially an international terrorist. For us, Russia, there are no unfriendly or hostile nations, either in the West or in the East. Like, well, what you talk about how unfriendly the West is all the time. Just like the vast majority of people on the planet, we want to see a peaceful, free, and stable future. Okay, but on what terms? Like under your submission, or how exactly? We believe that any ideology of superiority is abhorrent, criminal, and deadly by its nature. So I just did this episode on Russism or Rashism. It depends on how you pronounce it. And you just have to go back and watch that video so you understand the weird racial superiority that Russians feel over other nations around them, and you'll understand. However, the Western global elites, oh, here we are, they're the problem. The Western global elites keep speaking about their exceptionalism, pit nations against each other, and split societies, provoke bloody conflicts and coups, sow hatreds, Russophobia, aggressive nationalism, destroy family and traditional values, which makes us human. They do this all to keep dictating and imposing their will, their rights, and rules on peoples, which is in reality a system of plundering, violence, and suppression. So I've said this before, but whenever Russia says something, whatever their line is, they're saying they do this. That's what they're doing. And if you just read that same thing and look at what Russia is doing, that's kind of what they're doing. They seem to have forgotten what the Nazis' insane claims of global dominance led to. Okay, I'm skipping down the line. We see how in certain countries they ruthlessly and cold-bloodedly destroy memorials to Soviet soldiers, demolish monuments to great commanders, create a real cult of the Nazis and their proxies, erase and demonize the memory of true heroes. That's because you were oppressing them, and they don't like memories of being oppressed. Such profanation or profanity, I guess, of the feet of the sacrifices of the victorious generation is also a crime, an outright revanchism on the part of those who were cynically and blatantly preparing a new march on Russia. Really? Ukraine was preparing to march on Russia? And who brought together these neo-Nazi scum from around the world for this? Their goal, there is nothing new about it, is to break apart and destroy our country, to make null and void the outcomes of World War II, to completely break down the system of global security and international law, to choke off any sovereign centers of development. Again, if you just think about what Russia's doing, saying it's the same thing. What he's saying is what Russia's doing. Boundless ambition, arrogance, impunity eventually lead to tragedies. This is the reason for the catastrophe and Ukrainian people are going through. They have become hostage to the coup d'etat and the resulting criminal regime of its Western masters. Collateral damage in the implementation of their cruel and self-serving plans. Wow. Amazing that he would be willing to say anything like that. I mean, like if this isn't the pot calling the kettle black, I just don't know what is. It's absolutely stunning. Okay, so that is Putin talking about how he's framing his speech for the Great Patriotic War. But he, again, you missed in the, if you didn't hear it, in the second paragraph of after Happy Victory Day, he said a real war is being waged against our country. He called it a war. It's not a special military operation. It's a war. He should go to jail for that. Okay, now there's another article where Dmitry Peskov is talking about how the Kremlin explains why it no longer speaks to Western media. This was absolutely amazing. It was this was mind blowing to me, and I read a lot of this stuff. Okay, Dmitry Peskov, this was an RT, stopped giving interviews to Western outlets a year ago. He explained that he cut them off because, quote, they would not tell the truth, unquote. This is Dmitry Peskov. He lies almost every day. It's like he doesn't get through a press conference without lying or without distorting the truth. At least we gave several interviews, but they distorted everything. This is another quote. Change the meaning of things, the presidential explained. Perhaps some journalists want to tell the truth, but their editors will not allow it. So the Kremlin agreed that further contacts with Western media were pointless. I made a decision. Until I see the Western media showing at least some interest in the truth, we will not communicate with them, Peskov told ATV. As for my photo, one is enough. Why would they need more? Okay. Well, with all that being said, I can barely contain myself of just how amazingly bad that was. So, okay. Now I see that there are a lot of you here in this live stream. So I'm going to welcome any of your questions, but I'm going to keep it short. I again split. This was a fluke last week because of time. I recorded the actual weekly wrap up. So here I'm just going to answer a few questions, be done with it. So if you have questions, put them on there. I will talk to them. If you don't have questions, well, at least you got to hear Putin's speech, which was actually bizarre, and Dmitry Peskov's statement about lying about the West lying. So, okay, what questions do you have for me? A lot of people are saying good afternoon, and I see that. And so, what I'm going to do here quickly is I'm going to go into my community tab, and I'm going to go see what questions you might have had, unless I see questions pop up for me. Just give me just a moment here. Community tab. Let me get to it. And I'll answer your questions, but I'm only going to do this for 5, maybe 10 minutes tops, and then we'll be completely done. So if you have something for me, pop it in there. Anybody? Nothing this week? This was an amazing week with the Victory Day Parade, 1 tank at the Victory Day Parade, 50 vehicles when they normally have 130 something, or they had 130 something in 2021, and they normally have upwards of 200. So it was actually quite a show of weakness, is the best way that I can explain it. Okay, Karen Latta said, Professor, do you think that there will be more volunteers coming to Ukraine now that they are on the offensive? I don't know. I don't know. I know that it's volunteers want to be there. I don't know that that's if you're talking about Ukraine, Westerners coming into Ukraine, they want to be there, and they're just trying to work them into it. It was biggest at the very beginning because it was most urgent. As far as volunteers from Russia, I think they're going to be continually streaming those volunteers at their will. And yeah, Russia is going to be, from everything I can detect, mobilizing quietly rather than having another wave of mobilization. They have the electronic system now, and so they'll just do it that way, and it won't look like a mobilization, but de facto it will be mobilization. Okay, let's see. Do you agree that Kinzhal doesn't look hypersonic as Russia says? We're talking about the last Saturday, Russia shot down a hypersonic missile that was supposed to not be able to be shot down. I don't know if Patriots are reconfigured or are just that good, or if their missiles are just that bad, but it's it got shot down. And the funny thing was that Putin was bragging about this, and it was like, boom! It just like that special effect there. I did, boom. Okay. how do you do I think that the Russians are running away in the recent gains around Bakhmut are because of their fears of long promised counteroffensive? I do not know what's happening there. I'm not military expert enough to be able to explain that either, but that they were running away, that they have had that problem is a great thing. Radak Suki says, "How do I think the reparations from Russia should look like, considering the failure of German reparations after World War One?" Well, John McCain famously said that Russia is a gas station masquerading as a state, and so you actually have that there that you can just drain the oil and gas and pay for things very easily comparatively. So I'm not worried about them repeating that mistake. And on top of that, we have World War One's experience leading to World War Two to keep us from being so punitive that we're going to grind them into the resentment that would cause the next wave. We can still have them pay and restore things and work that out in a measured way, I think, if smart, cooler heads prevail. What is with Lukashenko's health and what happens if he dies? Um, Lukashenko's health has been bad for a while. What happens if he dies? Well, I'm sure that there's a plan to put another puppet in place. I don't know this for a fact, but I can't imagine it wouldn't be. And I don't think much will change. I think it might cause the people to think this is their moment to rise up, but I don't know that that will happen. Uh, I don't know. So the people in Belarus strike me like somewhere between Ukraine and Russia. Russia, they're serfs. In Ukraine, they're Cossacks, and credit to Ozzy for that. But in Belarus, and I've been to Belarus, their mentality is a little different. They're very quiet, very secretive, very like I don't want to. Like in Japan, they have the nail that sticks up gets hammered down as a statement, and but they know that things are wrong. At least in my observation, this was true. Um, Okay. What's with Lukashenko's health? Okay, what Old Foggy says, what, in your opinion, of the massive missile strikes by Ukraine in the last days? Um, I don't know enough about them to be able to form an opinion. So Ukraine is in this weird place where counteroffensive's coming, but nobody knows what the counteroffensive is or where it's going to strike. So it um, could be something of military value or importance, or it could be that this is a feint of we're going to be doing this here, or it could be both simultaneously or neither. I just don't know, and I claim ignorance when I don't know stuff. Um, Karen Latta said, Putin, what could be his exit window? Poisoning, internal takeover. Will he be fine after the war? I don't think he'll be fine after the war. I don't know. So poisoning or exit window seems to indicate that somebody's going to do something to him, and nobody really wants to trade their life for his. So I don't know that anything like that is going to be happening. But I don't know. I can tell you, I don't believe that the people will rise up. I just don't. I don't see any indication that the people, the serfs rather than Cossacks that are there, have any indication or have shown me any willingness to do that. Um, so yeah, I just don't know what to make with that. So I put out a poll the other day. Or not a poll. I put out a bit of questions and said, "Hey, what questions do you have for me?" And so I'm going to go and look through some of these, unless you have other questions. Oh, here it just popped up. Noob of the year, hi Prof. Do you think that Putin will roll Belarus into their country if Lukashenko dies? So it's interesting that you say that because after the war ended, Lukashenko was really the one hawkish about creating the system of Commonwealth states, and he was like trying to like be buddy buddy with Russia and say, yeah, we're gonna be this joint thing together, and Putin's response to him was like, yeah, as one of our states, one of our oblasts, and Lukashenko didn't appreciate that at all, but. I would imagine Putin would like to do something like that, but then he would need a buffer zone of Poland and the Baltics in order to prevent the evil West from doing what the evil West does. Belarus had Lithuanian influence in its formation. They're more so that's what I'm picking up on. I went into Belarus from Lithuania, and the Lithuanians have a very different perspective as well. Um, Confederate States of America says it could be a surprise. Good things come to those who wait. Yeah, it could be. And Zelensky promised a surprise worth waiting for. So we'll see how that all plays out. I'm not exactly sure, and I don't know what to tell you. Okay, at any rate, I put that cartoon of the Victory Day parade, which is really sad, out, and I said another amazing week, and amazing is probably not the right word, but just how hard to believe week in Russia and in Ukraine and Russia. What are your questions now? And here are a few questions. Been trying to catch your videos. So wait, hold on. Okay, I guess one thing I do recall is that I was surprised that you didn't pry a little further into Scott Ritter during the recent profile video on him. I was waiting to hear about how he was a sexual predator of minors, twice charged, once convicted. And again, I've talked about this, but I'm trying to deal with his argument and his thinking. And if I said that right up front, I would have just been poisoning the well, and nothing I would have said after that would have mattered in comparison. So I'm trying to understand what makes the guy tick. And maybe that, that's part of what makes the guy tick. I'm certainly not saying, oh, it's okay. I'm just saying, like, that's not part of why he so appreciates Russia, or maybe it is, but I can't see it if it is. Okay, another one. Professor, I was curious if any leadership or management skills went into Putin's decisions on the war. Yes, that was a facetious comment. Yeah, but there is. I mean, he thinks the way to lead is by a strong hand, and I'm going to tell you people what to do, and it's decisive. And as an authoritarian, you can get away with that. You can get people to do what you want, but you also can go off the rails very easily, and that's the danger of being a dictator. I would never want to be a dictator. It would be the worst possible thing because you're never going to get truth. Okay. Just a few more questions. Fox Sparrow says, are we going to see a rise of a new European military strength, like in Germany rearming and Poland buying massive amounts of weapons? Well, they have to rearm in order to supply Ukraine. So we're going to see that. But I don't know how that'll play out as far as, like, they don't want to spend on that, right? Oh, I missed a couple. What impact do you think the war will have on Ukrainian corruption? The war has been great for corruption because that sounded wrong. Great for curbing corruption because they need to curb it to join the EU and to keep Western partners in place. And so people who would otherwise have been corrupt and gotten away with it are kind of on notice. Don't do this. This can really hurt us. And if one T-34 should accidentally fall, yeah, one tank at the, so that parade was so meant to show strength, and it just demonstrated weakness. It was actually it was almost painful. Okay, last couple questions. I'm going to read Carol's, and then if you have one or two more in the next minute or two, I'll put that, and then we'll be done. And then you can see the other weekly recap that I'll put out right after this. Are nuclear weapons deployed to Belarus a message to the West or a message to Belarus? Perhaps a little bit of both, but I think it's primarily a message to the West with the subtext going to the Belarusian audience. Carol says, we see the Victory Day Parade in Moscow 2024 when only tank on display this year will be the Seoul World War II T-34 tank is also gone. Prigozhin parading on Red Square, riding on a donkey. Well, I don't know. I mean, Prigozhin seems to have ambitions. Ozzy says, I think their only effect will be for Putin to move on Belarus, which should be he feel the need to using nuclear safety as an excuse. Yeah, they like nuclear saber rattling. Old Foggy says, thanks, NP. NP, by the way, is nerdy professor, because I pointed to myself as a nerd once. Glory, and so that's a kind of an inside joke. Glory to Ukraine and condemnation to Russia. That's a good place to end it. Hey, man, thanks for paying attention and caring and being plugged in and wanting to know things and disseminating this information too. Like if you can explain, like go back to yesterday, to Russophobia. If you can, not Russophobia, Racism. I called it Russism. I have a terrible accent anyway. But if you can explain that to people, then it will start to make sense. And people that are on the borderline, you can help them and persuade them. You can contact your legislators and things along those lines. But while you're not going to be on the front line, this info war is very important as well. And there is really clashing narratives here, and being aware of that and being involved in that is important stuff. So thank you all for caring about Ukraine. I really appreciate that you're here with me. All right. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.